Councillors, I'd like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land which we are gathered and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the City Infrastructure Committee meeting on the 3rd of September. I now declare this meeting open at 10 o'clock. I would like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. Move on to attendances and leave of absence. Councillor Fraser has submitted a leave of absence. Oh, he's on Teams. Can you hear us, Tim? Yep, he'll get back to us. There's no leave of absence? There are no leaves of absence to record. We'll move on to confirmation of previous committee meeting minutes. There is now a motion displayed on the screen to confirm the previous minutes, that the minutes of the Infrastructure Committee held on the 6th of August be confirmed. Do I have a mover for the motion as displayed? Councillor Lane has moved the motion. Councillor St Ledger has seconded the motion. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? There being none, I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. It's been carried unanimous. Motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. I now move on to declarations of conflicts of interest. Councillor Fraser. Oh, can you just text him, please, Councillor Murphy? We'll just keep going, huh? Declarations of conflict of interest. I now refer to the declarations of conflict of interest. Do any councillors wish to declare a conflict of interest today? Councillor Heremiah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today I raise a declarable conflict of interest declaration in regards to items 6.5, 6.6 and 6.7 of today's Infrastructure Committee meeting. In line with best practice governance standards, I will voluntarily leave the meeting while these matters are discussed and voted on. These matters could have a reasonable level of relevance to the state electorate of Waterford that is currently in an election cycle. As a candidate in that election cycle, I'm choosing to provide notice of a declarable conflict of interest in these matters and to voluntarily leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heremiah. I just got to note too that Mayor John Raven is currently not in the room, but hasn't, so he must be coming back in a second. We'll move on to the reports. Our first report for today, item 6.1, is a confidential report about the Critical Infrastructure Risk Management Program and annual report approval. Do any councillors wish to move into a confidential session? Councillor Lane. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Russell. I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Been carried unanimously. Can I continue, Councillor Murphy?
No, he's not responding.
Yeah. No dramas. The motion has been carried. The meeting is now closed to the public. We'll just wait for the... Open session and the live stream has recommenced. Thumbs up. I'll now bring your attention to the recommendation on the board. Give you a minute to read it. When you're ready, if there's a mover for the motion. Councillor Stemps happy to move the motion. Councillor St. Leger was seconding the motion. All those in favour? From Tim? Yeah, he's good. So, motion has been carried, noting that Mayor Raven is still out of the room. Sorry. Does anyone have any general business for the Logan Water? Oh, Councillor Lane.
Thank you very much. I have a question in relation to reporting. So we've got residents who say that they're reporting problems with blown pipes and water leaking out of things. Do we have a backlog of serviceable equipment that we can do a quick fix on, or are we just doing it as required? Because it seems that it takes a number of weeks for water leaks to be fixed. I'm not saying that the crew's doing anything wrong. I'm just saying residents are concerned. We drummed water safety into them and they're just so used to following along that path that having it leak for a couple of weeks is very distressing to some of them. Have we started ordering extra equipment? Because it seems that stuff is failing all over in my division at a rapid rate.
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to, because of my 2 days experience with the Logan Water, and I visited one incident, number 30 Somerset Road, Rochdale South, as one of the incidents reported by the councillors. So I went and had a look at it. The rate of leak was, in my eyes, from urban utilities, it's a bit high. So I came back and spoke to the team and explained to them and tried to understand how they get the criticality worked out, how it's going to be thing. Is it by the liters per second, or is it close to the house? Is it close to the school? Is it kids going to go across? So they got a pretty good criteria to evaluate the thing. So the first respond and go to the site is the one bring the data back to the ish and prioritize the job through the scheduling and dispatch. Sometimes the marginal things come into play to see whether we need to spend the overtime and got rid of a small leak, or we utilize all the workforce all the night and then don't have anybody to utilize it for the next working days. Sometimes it's the perception of the guy who go to the site make the difference. So this one was a 16-inch connection leaking. It was a dead end, supposed to be sealed properly. So then they opened it up, everyone getting water, but there was a small leak. That leak was, in my eyes, it need to be actioned within 3 days or 36 hours. So we are reviewing those things. BME coming from urban utilities with a different eyes, we will be able to improve that one.
Thank you very much for that answer. My question was about spare parts. So it seems that the delays, I'm not questioning the officers going out and investigating and trying to action it quickly. It's the reserve of spare parts on this infrastructure. Are we building that, or are we just ordering it as required?
Through the chair, some of the assets, some of the spares are kept in the Marston depot. I've been there and had a look at it. Looks like, in my eyes, as a first visit, looks like most of the assets were there. But it's not no harm in doing a review and have a look at it whether they've got the critical spare parts are there.
Thank you, sir.
Councillor Brady, do you have GB a question? Because I've seen Rochdale South and I knew you'd be on to that question. So GB or GB?
Thank you, through the chair. I represent the area that you went and saw, so thank you very much for that. And my question was very similar once Councillor Lane brought that up, because I know with there's one that I reported in Cinderella Drive that even yesterday was still just running, like someone had a fire hose sort of thing, and it gobsmacks me how long it takes. So I understand you've only been here 2 days, but if that can be looked into, that'd be really good.
Did you want to respond, or you're all good?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll go through the chair. I'll go through and have a look at that. I don't want to go through one by one every complaint. I go through the backlog and find out what's happening in the system and the processes and the spare parts. And when we go through the customer commitment statement later on in the committee meeting, we'll be able to discuss. Thank you.
Before the Logan Water team run off, I got excited and missed 6.2, so we better vote on that. So we have a recommendation on the board for 6.2. Oh, would you like to speak to the report for item 6.2?
So my colleague here, customer advocacy and the experience lead, Lisa Blanchard. This report we are submitting today. It was brought to this committee in June 2024, get approval to go for a community consultation, and as per the legislative requirement, this standard need to be reviewed every 5 years. So the Logan Water gone through a customer consultation. This is closed now, and it was gone through the organization system and the public feedback in relation to the report. Most of them were talking about the readability of the document, and the other questions were general issues in the water area. So we are seeking council endorsement to the customer commitment statement and the key service standards to be effective from 1st of October 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any councillors have any questions regarding the report? Recommendation is up on the board. I'll take your time to read, and when you're ready, if we have a mover. Councillor Lane has moved the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bradley. All those in favour? Tim, good? Motion has been carried. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item 6.3, our Sustainable Fleet Strategy Update. It's a public report, and we welcome Mr. Thomas Brayley. Here. Welcome, Mr. Thomas Brayley. Floor is yours when you want to speak about your report, mate.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Through the chair, I'd just like to introduce my colleagues. I have Lee Halkias, who's the Fleet Management Programme Leader for Plant Fleet Services. We've got Brendan Ling, who's our Green Fleet Project Lead, and we have Aaron Rubin at the back, who's our Business Services Coordinator from Plant Fleet Services. So today is about communicating the progress on the Green Fleet strategy through a video presentation. The video we have crafted aims to provide a clear and accessible update for Council, who ultimately oversee the strategy's deployment. Some background on the Green Fleet strategy. It has been a collaborative effort. Plant Fleet Services has worked on the draft strategy with other parts of Council and the ELT through COVID. This allowed us to set ambitious yet achievable stretch targets. It was officially adopted by Council in February 2022. The strategy is aligned to the life of the corporate plan, allowing for a cohesive approach to achieving Council's long-term goals. Since strategy adoption, we have appointed a dedicated project lead, which is Brendan Ling, to help us achieve the targets through an innovative and structured approach. A majority of the 44 impact initiatives have now either been delivered or are in progress. If I could please request your attention to the video. The Green Fleet strategy is something that we've been working on for some time. It started pre-COVID, worked on it through COVID, and post-COVID a lot of changes had to happen. What we're trying to achieve with the Green Fleet strategy is we're trying to be leaders in the sustainable fleet industry. We're trying to contribute to Commonwealth and Queensland emissions reduction targets of net zero emissions by 2050. We plan to further reduce councils' carbon footprint and energy costs through innovation and new technologies. The strategy is over 5 years. Many of the impact initiatives within the strategy are being delivered or are well underway and will be completed by the end of the strategy. It links with the rest of council and has synergies right across council with what they're doing in their carbon reduction through solar installs on council buildings, green waste collection, Logan Water Waste Treatment Plant and their huge solar farm and their gasification plant. Plant Fleet Services really does play a pivotal role in this transformational change that's occurring. Some of the critical steps that we've taken as part of the Green Fleet strategy is initiation of the Green Stamp accreditation for the depot operations. We did our ISO 9001 environmental gap analysis. We've had a huge uplift in culture. It's multiple branches across the organisation and the culture that supports a sustainable transition. In collaboration with the Health, Conservation and Environment branch, we installed a huge 100 kilowatt system onto Marsden Depot roof, meaning that we're self-sustainable in our daily operations, and it also powers a Tesla battery to power the nighttime activities within the workshop. IVMS was one of the impact initiatives that was part of the Green Fleet strategy. In-vehicle monitoring systems used to be called GPS. Now this is critical in how we monitor the behaviour of these vehicles, the fuel consumption, optimisation, utilisation are all critical to reducing costs and managing our carbon footprint. And then there's the quality management accreditation that we keep on a yearly basis and make sure that we have our processes in place that meet the requirements of that. And they've streamlined and leaned all of our processes, making sure that we're doing things effectively, we're not wasting time and we're not wasting money. So that's one of the critical steps of the Green Fleet strategy. And we've improved our fuel efficiency of all of our vehicles. 50% of council passenger vehicles to be either EV or hybrid at the end of the life of that strategy, and we've surpassed that.
So my name's Brendan Ling, I'm with the Plant Fleet Services branch. We've been running electric vehicle driver training. Most staff have never driven an electric car before, so this is a great opportunity to bust some myths and show them how to drive an EV really. If you look at this example here in America, most of the emissions over the life of a regular car is from the burning of the petrol or the diesel, which is this big chunk here. With EVs, the big chunk is using the electricity because our electricity still mostly comes from coal. So there is emissions associated with using electric cars at the moment, but the thing is you can choose to use renewable energy. So this section here is removed for council's EVs, and so that remains the construction of the vehicle. It's way less than a petrol car.
Got the new Future Fleet Centre here. It's to us to fully maintain, service all the EVs across council, whether it be light vehicles or a couple of trucks that we've got on trial at the moment. This safeguards the future of the council's fleet, as well as the upskilling of the guys in the workshop. It gives them the skills to be able to service it on site, not relying on outside parties, and just gives us more sustainability with the solar and everything that we're putting back into the system as well. For our staff, it gives them more security because it's obviously an ever-changing world we live in with all the EVs and whatnot. It's all evolving and changing.
Indirect emissions management is something that we're really focusing on. We've recently closed a tender where our suppliers of stores and consumables will have to deliver them with either a renewable energy car or a sustainable fueled car. With building of our assets, design and development of our trucks, we build a vehicle that suits a purpose and an application within Logan City Council. And that means that the suppliers have those parts that they construct that truck. They don't have to ship them in, and also the turnaround time on those assets is quicker, it's more cost effective for council and cost effective for the supplier as well. Thank you for watching. The team and I are happy to take any questions.
As the chair, I've got a question. So you've dropped fuel by 18% since 2018, but obviously our vehicle has increased, the number of vehicles we've got. So, because when you first hear it's dropped by 18%, you go, oh yeah, but then you realise how many more vehicles we've got since 2018. Probably, would you have a off the cuff number of how many vehicles have gone up? Because that's obviously it's a bigger saving than what we can see there.
Through the chair, I'd have to confirm the exact number, but for example, I think this year we've already increased our fleet by about 15 or 20 vehicles based on service enhancements and new services, but I'd have to get the exact number to correlate with those figures shown up there. But yeah, most definitely the overall fleet numbers have increased as well. So, thanks.
Do any councillors have any questions? Councillor Bradley?
Thank you, through the chair. I'm just curious, maybe it was in the report and I didn't read it, so my apologies because I read it last week. What sort of vehicles do you use for council officers on the whole? Which preferred vehicle do you use?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. Yeah, so currently we've been including the Kia Niros into the fleet, so that they're been our preferred option to add into the carpool fleets across council, and we're looking at more options to bring in the appropriate vehicles. We've also added 3 EV vans to the fleet, which to service our corporate property and IT areas. So looking at opportunities as they come up, but they're the current ones included.
Thank you.
Before we vote on the recommendation, we're just going to table the video. Do I have a mover to table the video? Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Russell. All those in favour? This being carried unanimously. So now we move to the recommendation. If you have a chance to read, and if you can give, someone could move the recommendation when ready. Councillor Jeremiah has moved. Councillor Murphy has seconded. All those in favour? Well done. It has been carried. Does anyone have any general business for the plant services manager? Smashed it. Good job. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, councillors. Just want to welcome the gallery. We actually have one today. A little bit nervous now, all this pressure on me. Welcome, gentlemen. You need ladies there too? Don't give yourself in trouble. So we'll move to item 6.4, the Capital Roadworks and Drainage Program, which will be led by Mr. Paul Wilson. All yours. I can't help you with that clicker, mate. I'm good, but I'm not that good.
Thank you, councillors. The purpose of this report is to actually provide an advice on the council's capital roads and drainage program delivery status at the end of the 23-24 financial year, and to provide a look ahead for the 24-25 financial year. I'll race through this one fairly quickly if we can. So some of the project highlights. So we've actually delivered 142.1 million, which is actually an increase of about 6% on the 22-23 financial year. There are some significant projects, which includes the Logan Lee Road, which is circa $80 million. Just some facts. So we've constructed approximately 15 kilometres of road upgrades across the year, about 6.5 kilometres of shared pathway, more than 4.5 kilometres of stormwater infrastructure, and about 41,000 tonnes of asphalt. Across that expenditure, it's split across roads and capital drainage and our rehab programs, with those splits 110 versus circa 38. And they're broken up into the sub-projects, programs that you can see there. I'll just race through these projects, as I'll take it as read that you've all looked at the report. So the look forward into the 24-25 year capital program, we're expected to deliver at the end of the financial year
approximately 135 to 145 million across the year. As you can see in the flow chart in there, we've got progress of works across the each of the phases, with the predominant ones being in the pre-construction is over 105 million, and those that are already in the awarded works are over 96 million. That's the list of the upcoming construction projects that are in each division. And some of the delivery risks that we're still seeing in the space are inflationary impacts are still impacting the capital program, availability of civil construction resources, materials, although they are easing, and then service authority government approvals are actually still causing us a little bit of grief. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Apologies for getting up. I did 3 discs in my back, so it's joy to getting 50. Councillor Murphy, you have a question?
Thank you, through the chair. Good morning, Paul. Thank you. I just wanted to say thanks for the progression on the Cowper Avenue and Kelly Street precincts. The new contractor is flying through the works. Our community is happy to see that everything is progressing really well, especially in and around that Ceres Street, Roebuck, Dryandra, and especially because they were the flood-affected streets as well. So thank you very much to you and the team. I believe the contractor is ahead of the time there, and also our retirement villages were very pleased that Friar Road and Logan Street were open again. I do know that there's night works that are still happening in and around that precinct, but they were very happy to have the flow of the traffic and no diversion there. So thank you to the team, if you could pass that on. Thank you.
Councillor Wilcox.
Thanks, through the chair. Hello. Just a quick question. The Q4 major projects under construction are Logan Lee Road upgrade, Chambers Flat Road upgrade, and Mundoolan Road rehab. They're quite costly projects that have been done. Are they all Logan City Council local roads, or are they state roads, or which?
So they are actually on our Logan City Council Capital Works program, so they are council roads being delivered.
So council roads being delivered, and it's like $105 million worth in 3 projects just sitting there. How have all those projects been funded? Are they all funded through Logan City Council? Is there any grant funding? Is there funding from state?
So there is a mixture across each of the projects. So there is funding attached to some of the projects, but the balance is actually made up out of our Capital Works delivery program.
So out of the 105 million, how much roughly would Logan City Council have chipped in, and how much would the others? Like, what do you know what the balance is? Is it at like 50-50 split, or?
I don't have that information in front of me. I'd have to come back to you on that information.
Be interesting to know, saying it's approximately 80 million, so how much is council chipping in? It's approximately 54 million. How much is council in 17.4? Just be interesting to know with a bit more information in these slides in the future, just to know the cost split.
I'll take that on notice and provide that information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the chair. Good morning. On page 42 of 252, it refers to the Cinderella Drive Share Pathway and the Dennis Road, Cinderella Drive and Barbarella Drive intersection. And I just want to pass on my feedback that the contractors were absolutely amazing. However, I'm just curious who goes around and checks that the contractors have actually completed rehabilitation of areas appropriately, because I had to send an email last night and a photo to the parks manager, because Springwood Park, you can see the big truck marks from where they had been located. I'm just curious, does someone go around and check that they have rehabilitated appropriately?
Yep, thanks for your question. Through the chair, our delivery team are doing their audit at the moment. I have been liaising with the parks management team around the works that are to be finalised, which includes the street trees, some garden beds, and rehab works that have got to go on. So that will be imminent.
Okay, so maybe I should have sent that email to you rather than the parks manager. Okay. And yeah, again, the contractors went above and beyond, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And thank you for your team to meeting me out on site for the dog off leash issues. I'm not sure, I haven't had feedback whether they've been resolved yet or not, though. If I could receive that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. Noticing some black spot projects coming up. That's fantastic. Can you just tell me how black spot stuff works? I'm assuming that's federal funding, and particularly interested in, I understood that Julie Street Bumpstead Road intersection was black spot funded. Is that waiting for council funding, or what's the, if something's been funded by black spot funding, what else does it need to go ahead? Thank you.
So the black spot funding is through state federal funding. That one you've talked about, Bumstead and Julie Street, we've actually got that on our program, and it is actually funded in our program for delivery. I don't have the exact date of when that one will be delivered, but I can come back to you on that one as well.
Right. Thank you. So it's not waiting on funding. There's other parts of the process needed. Thank you.
Yep, correct. Yep.
Thank you. No more questions? Recommendation is up on the board for item 6.4. When you're ready, after you've read it, if we have a mover. Councillor Murphy has moved. Councillor Lane, did you second? Councillor Lane is second to the motion. All those in favour? Been carried unanimously. Councillor Heremiah, sorry mate, conflicts of interest. We now move to item 6.5, the Bethania to Logan Village Rail Trail Detailed Design, led by Mr. Paul Wilson again. All yours.
Thank you, through the Chair. The purpose of this report is to inform Council that the rail trail detailed design is now complete, and to seek Council endorsement to engage with the Department of Transport and Main Roads on project funding. Following Council's resolution in June 2023, the preliminary design was presented to the community and key stakeholders. Feedback from the community sessions and key stakeholders were used in conjunction with the preliminary design to progress the detailed design. Key aspects that have arisen out of the detailed design, taking into consideration all matters and feedback, has seen all existing rail bridges now being retained and a bypass provided at each of those locations. During the community sessions, many residents adjacent to the trail expressed a desire to install CCTV cameras. Monitoring of the entire corridor was not feasible. However, agreement in principle has been reached with residents and Council's safety camera program to install cameras at specific locations where the trail intersects with roads. Residents within the Palm Lake Resort were also concerned about safety and security. Investigations are underway to install privately owned and maintained CCTV systems adjacent to the resort with Palm Lakes to fund. Since the initial $13 million estimate presented to Council in June 23, there have been some additional elements incorporated into the design estimate in response to stakeholder engagement. These include 7 CCTV cameras have been added in the detailed design phase, which were not included in the initial design estimate. An additional cost for CCTV cameras has been included in the project budget. The construction of some of the new bypass to existing rail bridges will incorporate new shared pathway bridges. Infrastructure components such as bridges have experienced price increases higher than general project costs. To mitigate this ongoing risk, an additional cost for bridge-related expenses have been incorporated into the project budget. During the detailed design phase, optic fibre services were actually found at several of the bridge locations. These services weren't identified in the preliminary design phase. Therefore, an additional cost for the service relocations has been incorporated into the project budget. And there was also an additional cost incorporated into the project budget to purchase land from Queensland Rail to help deliver the Derry Creek trailhead. These additional elements, plus a further 12 months of construction price escalation, has seen the project budget increase to 15.1 million, which is in the report. Since then, there has been ongoing discussions related to the fencing fronting the aged care sites. This is a unique situation with a highly impacted group, and in the last week, Palm Lake Residents Group have provided support to an amended fence type rather than the fence that was identified in our detailed design. This will see a 2.1 metre high palisade fence fronting the aged care sites only, with screening, which is very similar to the one in the Wembley Road to...
So, Paul, can you just repeat what the actual type of the fence?
So it's a 2.1 metre high palisade fence.
I could explain palisade,
Yep.
but you should, yeah. Like.
So it's actually individual posts with a, I think it's a spike on top. Yep. Does that make sense? This is actually a school fence, yep, which is actually going to be similar to the fence that's actually in the pathway between Wembley Road, Charles Avenue and Woodridge, that's backing onto the preschool. So taking into consideration for the amended fence type, additional elements, construction price escalations, we anticipate the project cost for the rail trail from Council Cycleway Infrastructure Program be amended to 15.5 million. I must note that the Divisional Council has indicated he will pay Council's differential from his LIP allocated towards the increase of the amended fence type at the recommendation of Council officers. If Council endorses the amended project budget, the next steps will be issue the project design along with formal funding request to TMR, seek TMR to confirm 50-50 funding, commitment to the project, and then making the project design available to the community via the appropriate media channels.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We have a question from Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much to you, Mr. Chair. The purchase of the property on Dairy Creek, did we approach the state to say just give it to us, please, given that we're putting forward a $13 million project that's partially state funded?
I don't have that information on hand, sorry.
Then I don't see why we're discussing this, because we need this information.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I can comment to that. The state actually wrote to us partway through the project design and indicated that it was freehold land owned by Queensland Rail and they were intending to put it on the market. At that point in time, they made an offer to us to be able to purchase the land or requested did we have an interest in the land. We've indicated at this stage that we do, but I take on board your position that there would be opportunity to request their assistance further in that regard, and we're happy to explore that if you'd like. Yep.
Thanks very much, Mr. Director. It's just that this project, when it first came to council, was $7 million, and we're now at 15, and we haven't laid a single stone. And I have big concerns over that. When is enough enough? Have we asked the Army whether they can come and lay bridges for us? Because the cost of a bridge seems to be blowing out at a rapid rate, and they can manage to lay them everywhere. In different zones. We've got a whole engineer corps that maybe might want to practice on our local area, who knows, but as for the Divisional Councillor paying for a citywide tourism strategy, that's a matter for him, and kudos to him. I wouldn't be doing it. I understand that the group want that fence, and I think it's magic. They should get that fence, but that should be built into the overall cost. I just want to know, when is it going to go ahead if we approve this today, and how much contingency is built into it?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The report today is the opportunity for us to go back to the state and seek their commitment to 50-50 funding. So we don't have that commitment at this point in time. It's really the reason why we're here today is to be able to have that engagement piece with the state government. It is obviously progression of the project contingent upon them agreeing to that. They have been supportive throughout, but we have not been able to formally go back to them at this point in time. So off the back of the report today would really be only that process. We can then report back to council when we actually have a commitment from the state government to progress.
Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess similarly to Councillor Lane, like the longer it goes, the more it's going to cost. So I guess I'm concerned too that, you know, how do we get this thing really moving? So if this is the next step, couple of things. I'm really pleased to hear the bridges have been retained from a historical point of view, because to me that was was important as well to me. I like the idea of historical elements really being kept. With the cameras, just curious about those. You said it was 7 cameras. What were the concerns that were raised? Because my understanding is that, I mean, I've just done some recent research on rail trails. It's not normally a concern of safety. So what was raised by the community that required 7 cameras along the pathway?
Councillor Stemp, do you mean as in the Palm Lakes Resort or as in the 7 cameras?
No, I understand there's 7 cameras that are along the pathway, and I just was curious. That seems like a lot. I think $1 million worth of cameras seems like a lot personally.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to talk. Certainly the CCTV cameras were not in our original preliminary design. We spent some significant time engaging with the community through Have Your Say, as well as running the community engagement public meetings at Logan Village. We did give an undertaking through that process. The council would investigate those things that were raised by the community, and it was predominantly residents that were backing onto the rail trail where they perceived that there was no access to that area currently, and they were expressing concern around community safety. I do concur with your take that I have read a fair amount of studies out of the US in particular where there have been rail trails implemented. Crime and safety has not been associated with their implementation, but it has been, I guess, a significant concern that's been raised with us by the community and was raised by council by some councillors when we put forward the original preliminary plan as well. I am mindful that the rail trail for council is our first venture into a significant piece of infrastructure of that nature. And we may well see further knowledge within our community over time around the benefits that come from a rail trail. But there certainly has been concerns, I guess, expressed in the interim. Yep.
And just quickly, so once we get approval of funding, then you said it was design's the next, the actual final design. I was curious to understand, okay, once we get funding, we go through the next process, when are we likely to really get on the ground with this?
So our design process is now complete.
Okay.
We do need to finalise the land tenure with Queensland Rail, just in regards to the lease on that. There's several ways that can be progressed. Obviously, agreement with Palm Lakes around the final design accelerates that for us, which is part of the reason that we're, I guess, been engaging with them so heavily as well. But our design process with agreement, we would be then looking to progress to construction.
Okay. You can't really give any timeframes, too hard to really know.
I can't give a time frame because I don't know how long it will take us to get state government funding approval. I am keen that we're obviously writing to the current government. I am mindful that there will be a state election in the not too distant future, so there are certainly uncertainties around that. But from our perspective, we do have a completed design. We do not need to go back to design. We are looking to be able to fund that, and then we would progress to construction.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. Through the chair. Obviously, I've been around a while and I've seen numerous reports about the rail trail, and previous councils did not support this section being done for the cost, and safety issues, etc., and impacts on private property. Yeah, so I'm just telling you historical. The reason I put my hand up though was to be 100% sure that through the consultation that all the issues were addressed and concerns, like are there going to be people who are still not going to be happy? That's probably the bottom line question.
Through the chair, through the design phase, to my understanding, pretty much everything that was put through consultation phase has been considered in the detailed design, along with, there were other matters that we had to address, which fitted into our design, and making sure that we're meeting our design standards and desirable delivery of service. But essentially everything that was through the feedback was incorporated.
Oh, you're up.
Question, sorry, one more question if I may. And from memory as well, TMR were wanting to keep the, I don't know what you call it, the route for potential train line. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I can respond to that. There was a previous resolution of council which saw us write to the state government saying that the overall corridor was one that council wanted the state to continue to own and not dispose of on the basis that it had potential for transport purposes into the future.
Okay.
Now, council wrote to the state government on that basis previously. To a large extent, the rail trail will act to hold that corridor in public ownership into the future. Now, what that may bring in future decades or years, I don't know, but certainly that position hasn't changed in regards to council's desire for them to maintain the route, and I believe the rail trail in the interim certainly is an appropriate use of that. Whether it gets used for another purpose in the future, that would be well into the future, and I would not have an idea of what that may or may not be. Yeah.
With that in mind, is it possible with, I noticed the recommendation about the right to the Department of Transport and Main Roads. Is it possible to get clarification on that as well in that letter? That point?
I don't know that there's a clarification to receive. I think our position was really around the fact that they didn't sell the rail trail off, which has not occurred, and they've retained control, and the rail trail will ensure that it stays in public ownership.
Yeah, I suppose my concern is about, like, if we spend all this ratepayers' money, and then they decide, okay, we are going to build a train line now. Yeah, that's probably my concern, like the time frame.
I'm certainly happy to talk to TMR about that. I know at this stage there is no plans with TMR to build public transport in that corridor. It's not on their future planning in any shape, anywhere that I can see.
So you have access to their future planning?
We have had discussions with them. It's certainly part of the discussion around constructing the rail trail, is that they don't have any plans currently for that purpose. Our main objective, as I said, is maintaining that corridor for public purposes. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. Through the chair, we've touched on this, Darryl and Paul. If we go with the recommendations here today and approve the process, are we going to get some sort of acknowledgement prior to going into caretaker mode? And if not, will we be in a holding pattern until such time as we get a time to get the answer back? Like, is this going to drag on for a while, or are we trying to get this in before caretaker mode so we can get an answer?
Yep, thanks through the chair. The aim is to actually get in prior to caretaker period, which we understand is the end of this month. So we will be pushing hard to get documentation into TMR.
And that gives us a better chance of getting the approval to go ahead with funding.
That is our intention to work through that.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I need to be clear that TMR are an organisation with a political oversight as well. They will make the decisions based on their assessment of that. We certainly can't give a guarantee that they will make that assessment before.
But we're just trying to get into the queue before the elections.
We certainly believe there's merit in actually having it on the table before they go into caretaker, and that's why we're trying to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Cracking time for an election promise, if that sort of stuff goes on. Sorry, Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, through the chair. We've been talking about this since 2021. We originally asked, and I think probably before that, I think originally we asked the former mayor to request 80-20 split. February 23 it came back, August 22 it came back 50-50 funding agreement was subsequently co-signed by council and TMR. How much was that 50-50 split for? What was the amount? Was it 7 point something?
I think it was 7.6 off the top of my head, but I'd have to confirm that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe it was around 7. It was a commitment which was made by the state based on the preliminary feasibility study that was complete. So there was effectively a desktop audit done by a consultant, which we engaged in agreement with the state government, who contributed funding towards doing that feasibility. They, at that stage, committed to us actually going forward and doing a preliminary design and then the detailed design subsequent to that. So we did have an agreement at the preliminary feasibility stage, and we're now going back to them now that there is actually detailed design.
So a desktop audit, wonder if anyone actually, sorry, this has been me a bit cheeky, wonder if anyone actually got out of the office and actually went and walked it and that sort of thing to actually see how many culverts and stuff there were to see if that's what was blowing this out. I'm not comfortable with a recommendation that says $15.1 million for a rail trail that cars can't use, considering we just went through previously and $17.4 million was spent on a road upgrade in Division 9, considering we can't put cars on this. And we still don't know if TMR are going to go 50-50 in a funding agreement. What happens if they don't?
At this point, the recommendation is for us to write to the state to ask them exactly that question. So until we ask the question, we won't know the answer to that.
So effectively, we've just doubled our commitment if they are going to go 50-50. So we've gone from 3 point whatever to 7 point whatever for a rail trail.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, we did bring a report back in the preliminary design stage, which actually Council did resolve for us to move forward at, which was around 13.1 million, I think, previously. So the move since in costs from the last time we were here were in relation to the matters which the manager spoke to previously.
Yep, so it's gone up 2.1 million in 12 months. Yep. This is just escalating every month until we actually get on the ground. I can say I'm not comfortable with this at all, considering that's how much we're paying for roads. And I understand that it's a tourism thing. Have we investigated the fact that we could reduce the scope of this to reduce the costing? Because it is an obscene amount of money, of ratepayers' money.
Is there any more questions, Councillor Wilcox? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. With that 50-50 funding that we're going for, if we vote to go ahead with this today and we don't get the 50-50 agreement from the state, does it come back to us, or we're committing to going ahead with this however the funding is found? Are we going to have to find the funding?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we will write to the state and we will come back with the outcome that we receive from them. This is certainly not a commitment to continue if we don't get the funding from the state government.
Great, thank you. Second question, back to CCTV. The assessment of feedback that you got, the concerns that residents were speaking about, you highlighted that their highest concern was property security for those that were butting onto it, but it sounds like we're putting CCTV cameras on intersections for pedestrian safety, and I would have thought actually that user safety on the path itself, personal safety, would have been the higher risk. So I'm a bit confused about what is being asked for and what we're supplying in terms of the CCTV. Why are we choosing intersections if the highest complaint is around property security, which I'm not sure that we're responsible for? Sorry.
The idea with putting the CCTV at the intersections was actually to identify anyone that was actually crossing in that location. That was agreed in principle between residents and our CCTV camera. We did look at what the cost could have been as a feasibility for our entire trail, and it's just cost prohibitive. So we didn't pursue that any further.
Thank you. So with the responses that you got back from residents, how did you categorise them? Did you categorise them as property security versus personal security versus pedestrian security? Or how did you categorise?
I don't have that information in front of me, sorry, but I'd have to come back to you and confirm that.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So a lot of the concern which came from residents was around the fact that people would use the corridor to be able to access private property. Now, the discussion, I believe, that took place between our security safety cameras and where we engaged with the community was predominantly at the access points in and out of the corridor, which meant that we'd actually have some record or information in regards to people that were entering and exiting. I take on board your question in regards to where people are actually on the route versus where they're actually entering and exiting, and I guess there was a degree of push towards that. We have tried to locate them in locations where we can see the majority of the trails, tried to maximise what we could actually see. But happy to have some conversation with you offline if there's some input that you'd like us to take on board and consider.
No, that's okay. Just wanting to understand that. So that does help me, the information you've given there. And then I'm assuming that intersections are the, because of infrastructure already there, are the cheapest place to put a security camera as opposed to any other place on the trail. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Councillor Lane.
Thanks for a second chop, Mr. Chair. Quick question. So we've got 10 kilometres of what is a 34-kilometre rail trail. So this section's 10, roughly 10. We're at 15 mil. That's including the improvements to the residential needs of the seniors in Palm Lakes, as well as the CCTV footage. 161-kilometre Brisbane Valley Rail Trail cost 38 mil in 2016. So in terms of years and things like that, this represents a decent bang for buck at 15 million still. Springbluff Mountain up near Toowoomba costs them $2,000 a year to maintain because they just grade it, and they've never spent a cent on it because it was an old walking trail anyway. What are the design standards that you are using that is raising the cost of this? Is there a standard state or federally rail trail approved design standard? Because looking at the other ones and having walked the Brisbane one, I just don't see that we're on the same ballpark. It seems like ours has every bang and whistle that we could possibly do to stop someone from stumbling, falling or tripping versus what is a rail trail.
Thanks, Councillor. Through the Chair. The area that floods, so a lot of the bypass around the existing rail corridors, the bypasses that were introduced, there were significant culverts required to meet a certain flood immunity standard, which meant a lot more elevation in bridges or culverts. So the 3 bridges were actually incorporated into the bypasses, which have some significant height attached to them. So there is a fair bit of cost in the bridges. Yep.
Why are we building flood immunity into a natural walking path, given if someone walks in a flood, oh well. No, but seriously, we're building for the lowest common sort of theme and building something up. I'm quite confused by that. It should be a natural rail trail with just, shouldn't it?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That's okay. In terms of where we're talking flood capacity adjoining the bridges, they are not where we are talking similar to flood immunity, where we're talking roads and houses. We've provided low-level crossings, but look to provide some degree of lift so that we're not actually getting people's feet wet on a regular basis. In terms of probably a broader question in regards to the standard to which we're actually building the rail trail, there are various standards, as you've noted, across Queensland and across Australia. Even the Brisbane Valley Rail Trail, having ridden it from one end to the other, has varying standards depending on which section it's actually in. At the ends down near Fernvale, running through to Esk, a lot of that, there is areas in there which are concreted. There's certainly areas in there which are gravel, as you've mentioned, which are at a standard which would be graded. When we get up to the higher end, where we're running up the mountain from Linville, back up through to Black, but a lot of that is in bushland area and is a lot closer to probably the original trail that was actually in that location. The recent trail, which was actually opened at just south of the border at Murwillumbah, yes, is a granular trail. We've split the trail into two components. So south of the area, which is currently the high density living, we've actually gone with a gravel surface similar to what is actually on that section through Murwillumbah and probably those sections somewhere closer around Esk. North of Derry Creek, we've utilised some existing park infrastructure there already, but that area is actually a harder surfaced trail, which is probably similar to what we've seen in areas in, say, Moreton, where they've actually put in rail trails which are running through high urban areas and they've got an asphalt pavement surface on them. So we have tried to, I guess, minimise that cost by differentiating where the trail actually is to the type of standard that we've actually built, consistent to what we've seen elsewhere.
There's no design standard per se, it's just based on what's already out there.
We certainly looked at what was around on other trails and then tried to, I guess, utilise what we've seen others do and what had worked effectively. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I'll chip in here. 6 to 7 million is what council will put in if it gets approved, which isn't a big cost. I just spent almost 6 million on a rugby league club. Councillor Murphy, your one is costing more than that, I think. Like on the scale of things, it's not that big of money. We don't know what we're going to get unless we put this forward and have a go. It's the best time to put it forward because the election's on and everyone's promising you the world. We don't do that because we're councillors. But the state will promise you the world. So this is the time that we put it forward. And the part we're missing, I think, is that this is a small piece of the puzzle that goes all the way to Scenic Rim. Like, I'm begging for this to go through because I want to put it from Yarrabilba through to Jimboomba with a rail trail head. Council just spent $1.5 million in the middle of Jimboomba as a rail trail head, outdoor dining, music. This brings tourism to the area, and the mayor has been banging on, and one of his election commitments was changing the look of Logan, changing that perception of Logan. And one of the best ways to do it is to bring this tourism in. This will bring tourism in, restaurants to these areas. I've already got plans to put restaurants along it, community groups. Like, it's just, all we're doing is asking the state, there's your time, put your money where your mouth is, let's have a red hot crack. If it doesn't happen, and the state will make it happen, they're not stupid. This is an election loser if you don't do this as a state government. Put that on record. And for men, we want people to get out and be active. Like, being active is good for your mental health. Councillor St. Ledger will back me on that more than anyone. This gets people out from these areas to walking up and down that trail, talking. You know, I make a rule that I walk every morning for 30 minutes just because that's 30 minutes I get to talk to my wife. She probably not big on it, but it's 30 minutes where I get up, I walk, and I have a communication without phones. This to me, it's critical that we start this puzzle and get the thing rolling. Councillor St. Ledger.
Thanks, mate. I echo all those thoughts there from Councillor Bannon and what Councillor Lane and Councillor Stemp said on the sooner we can get moving on this, the better. What a great project. It's a citywide project, right? It's going to benefit the city, create connectivity, get people moving, get them out, and start linking up those areas. We've got this big, fast rail coming. It's going to provide people with that access. Only yesterday, a majority of our councillors here had a demonstration on some EV ways to commute around the city. We can see here, we've got a bigger crowd here than I've had at football ground finals in here to support it, which is fantastic. So, you know, and in answer to Councillor Bradley's question, if we were all to have ham sandwiches for lunch, not everyone would be happy. And that's just the truth with whatever we do here. What we've been able to do, and I can't thank the actual Daryl and Paul and their team enough, is I walked into this situation as a councillor and knew that this would be here once my job started. And my role there, which I spoke about in depth, was to build relationships. Those relationships started here inside these walls and then out there in the community. We had a large part of the community that felt unrest. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their own property, and I agreed with that. Did we get 100% solution, what those residents wanted? No. But we were honest about that, and the hard work that the teams put in behind the scenes, have answered phone calls, emails at different times of night while we've been working really hard on that has been amazing. So to have a community where this is going to run right through, and I've spoken openly and honest with them about it, that I'm pro rail trail, but as a divisional councillor, I'm also pro their safety and their well-being as well, and then that feeling of safety. So I think it's a great thing for Logan. I think it's a great tourism thing. It's also going to, like we said there, we're going to link up with other councillors and everything eventually. And what better place would you want to be going for a walk or a ride than straight through the middle of Division 4, right? So it's I think it's a great thing, and I just let's do it.
So there is an amended recommendation on the board, and you'll see the amendment is the change to $15.5 million from both parties, joint from the parties. So take your time to have a read. I'm guessing Councillor St Ledger will want to move it. And when you're ready, if I can have a seconder, please, which is Councillor Jackson. Oh, you just beat the mayor. Usually, but he hasn't enough coffee today, the mayor. So we've had a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? It's been passed, except for Councillor Bradley. How do you vote?
Against.
Councillor Wilcox?
Against.
Councillor Fraser was for. Sorry. Oh, Councillor Hall. Sorry, buddy.
I'm going to abstain on this one.
Okay. There you have it. The motion has been carried. And just a special shout out to Councillor St Ledger. The term new councillor, I don't use it very often, but the fact that you went into a red hot situation which was volatile and sat down with those 1,000+ residents, worked with staff behind the scenes, didn't have to call anyone out, and got that result working with staff of a bloke that's just walked on board, mate, you've got to be commended for that, because that's what a councillor does. So we're moving on now to, does anyone have any general business for the acting road infrastructure delivery manager? Oh, Councillor Lane.
So I'm not sure whether this is you, sorry if it's not, but I will, or Daryl. So my question is around some of our footpath rehabilitation stuff. I noticed that on Jacaranda Avenue there was some amazing footpath rehabilitation recently getting done, and Railway Parade. I was really excited by it because we'd gone through with Tara Collier and identified problems with the footpath. What I did notice and captured video footage of was that there were no traffic safety people on those projects. And yet when it came to Cascade Drive in Underwood, which carries about 200 people a day maximum versus 25,000 a day on Jacaranda and 16,000 a day on Railway, the local infrastructure program money is being kicked about 15 grand in traffic management on a back street. Is that your area?
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's actually the work being progressed by the Road Construction and Maintenance branch.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay.
Oopsie.
I will talk to that though, if that's okay. So I am aware that you have raised questions in regards to that. I have actually written to the manager of that area and asked for some advice in respect to that. I do not have that to hand yet, but I will certainly bring that back to you, and I'm happy to provide that to all of the councillors when it comes back in. Yep.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say, Mr. Director, this is not the first time that I've provided photographic evidence of traffic officers being missing out of council projects, but when it comes to local infrastructure program, we are hit up with that cost against the local budget. And I would really like an answer back in the next committee if that's possible, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Impeccable manners. Thank you, that's all we've got for you, mate. Thank you, good job. We'll now move on to item 6.6, the future plans and potential options for improvements for Glen Road Logan. It's a public report. It was raised by Councillor Jeremiah, unfortunately is not in it due to a conflict. And leading will be, welcome, Miss Megan Gould.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, road infrastructure planning, we're asked to investigate how the unimproved section of Glen Road between Pelham Street and Rainbird Circuit could be upgraded in the future. So we did go and look at our current statements of intent and the report outlines that the Glen Road is not included in the current statements of intent for road upgrades. However, it is on the pavement rehabilitation statement of intent, currently in the 2025-26 list. Part of the consideration of including roads on the SOI is whether there is actually opportunity in the future for development to contribute or deliver upgrades. And we do believe that there is remaining development opportunity in that area to deliver that section of road. It does have a risk. It could take time. It is dependent on the viability of each development going ahead, but there is that potential. So the recommended approach in the report is to just continue to maintain the road as we normally would. In the medium term, we'll deliver the rehabilitation works, and then in the longer term, just wait for that development opportunity to deliver a full upgrade. And I'm happy to take any questions on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gould. Do we have any questions? We have no questions. Recommendation on the board? So take your time to read it. Councillor Lane's already moved the recommendation. Just need a seconder. Councillor Murphy. All those in favour? Being carried, noting that Mayor Raven and Councillor St Ledger are out of the room. And next one is 6.7, Statement of Intent for Earth Retaining Structures 24-25 and beyond. It's a public report, and once again over to you, Ms Megan Gould.
Thank you. So road infrastructure planning currently own and manage earth retaining structures within the road reserve. The earth retaining structures SOI that we're presenting in that report is our prioritised list of projects aimed at enhancing city safety. We currently have just over, $366,000 in the financial year budget as part of a 10-year rehabilitation project. That would support delivery of approximately 1 to 3 projects per year, depending on how large or complex they are. So it is a relatively small budget and a long-term plan. The SOI is presented for structures or retaining structures that we know have concerns, and that's based on a condition assessment that was done by a qualified consultant. Sorry, just checking my notes for anything else that I thought worthy of raising.
If you're happy, Ms Gould, we'll chime in the director. He had something to add about the change in the recommendation, if you're okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we did. Unfortunately, Darryl will explain the...
Through you, Mr Chair. Unfortunately, the recommendation which is in the report is correct, with the exception that in recommendation 3 and 4, it does talk about potential change in priority, or if we have structures which fail prematurely. Within that recommendation, it didn't include who would actually be the decision maker in regards to that, and we don't want that left open to just being a decision of the organisation generally. There needs to be attached to an appropriate management person or management role to actually make that decision. So I'm just, I guess, putting on the table that there will be an amended resolution which actually just clarifies that point. Yep.
Thanks, Darryl. And, sorry. So the prioritised order is, as I said, based on that consultant assessment. So that looks at potential risk to people or property. Where that change in priority might occur is if there's a sudden deterioration in the condition of a retaining structure, or we're made aware of new information pertaining to the risk. So that's when we would look to change that priority. And again, happy to take any questions.
We have a couple for you, Ms Gould. We're starting off with surprise, Councillor Lane.
Who knew? Okay, so Megan, this is about structures that are on public land, not public-private land, because we had one on Beanley Road where someone's retaining wall failed, but that retaining wall was holding up a council noise barrier wall, and they had to spend extra money to build the retaining wall to the standard that required to carry council's wall. So this is not that. This is completely separate to that, isn't it?
That's correct. So this is a funded program for structures within the road reserve.
Thank you very much. In that case, I would like to give a really big shout out and thank you to Jin and Anthony. They did an amazing job on that opportunity for that resident. The resident was quite distressed and they handled it beautifully. So to you and your team, thank you very much. It was handled beautifully and I'm happy to move this when it's ready.
Didn't think you'd get that coming in, did you? Always going to say Councillor Nat, and that's because I always call her Nat, but it's Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. Through the chair. With the list of projects in the attachment 1, have we received complaints of anyone regarding those, or is that purely through investigation?
I might need to call on Jin's support to answer this one, but essentially it was based on the condition assessment and inspections that were done. I would, thank you Jin, imagine that if an issue is raised via a community member or via yourselves as council, then we would look to investigate that and have it included in future revisions. Did you want to add anything?
Through the chair, yes, it's a mixture of kind of like both from the consultant inspection and also the complaint from the residents.
And have we previously had an SOI list like this before where we can go out and do these types of works?
Yeah.
Yes, so there was, and the report has included that there was previously an endorsed list of projects that were delivered. It's not something that has a large number of structures or something that sort of changes quite dynamically.
Happy? No more questions? Do you get another question? Moved by Councillor Lane. Do I have a seconder? Councillor St Ledger. All those in favour? It's being carried unanimously. With the Councillor Bradley, anyone know where Councillor Bradley went?
She ordered an Uber, so I assume she was in.
Okay, Councillor Bradley has left the building. It's been carried. So we do have late reports by Councillor Jeremiah. He can come back if he is still here. If anyone wants to check if Councillor Jeremiah is here, please. While we're waiting, does anybody have any GB for Ms. Gould? Councillor St Ledger. Welcome back, Councillor Jeremiah.
I just want to reiterate what I said earlier. Darryl, Paul, and their team with the hard work that whole team's put in. We had some pretty open and frank discussions at the start, and we're able to work together. So yeah, really hats off, and a big special thanks to Liam too. So he's done amazing work. Thanks to everyone.
Councillor Jeremiah, we're just doing any general business for Ms. Gould. Did you have any? Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
I do have one, sorry. Just wondering how the drainage report is going. I note now it's probably 2 months overdue, so just wondering how that project's going.
Is this the RCM easements? I believe, Darryl, next.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the RCM manager has been meeting with councillors, I believe. I think he's now met with all of the councillors, or close to, and we are targeting that for the. He hasn't met with yourself. I will chase that up. We've certainly been keen to do that, and we're looking to bring it back. Optimistically, it will be either the next round or the round after, but optimistically, we're trying to get that back soon. Yes.
You happy? Thank you, Ms. Gould. Thank you very much for all your hard work. Does anyone have any general business for Director Darryl Riley? Councillor.
Thank you. Darryl, in May and June, I contacted Lee Busby regarding Tully Road needing a grade. I know he went out and drove it before he was seconded into another position, but I still don't have any information on whether or not it's going to get graded, because after the really heavy rains, it deteriorated. Someone's gone out there and dumped material in quite a few places. You literally need a four-wheel drive out there at the moment, and it's normally an easy road, but if I can find out what's going on with it, because I keep getting asked.
I'm certainly happy to take that on board and chase up where that is. Certainly, his secondment is outside of council, so that may have went with him, but we will chase that up. Yep.
Thank you, and as we have no late reports for today, I now declare that the infrastructure meeting dated the 3rd of September is concluded at 10:26 with the council governance starting at 11:36. Thank you, councillors.